Hello, my name is Hans Muench, and I will be sharing with you in the next half an hour some insights about tech in gyms and COVID learnings since the beginning of 2020. Before we begin, a little bit to my person. I am originally Canadian, I have a German passport, did my studies in the United States, had the opportunity to work around the world, Europe, Asia. I worked 5 years in Boston as the Director of International Development for IRSA, the International Health, Racket and Sports Club Association. And I'm still very active in the industry, traveling a lot, visiting my clients, going to trade shows. In fact, in late August, I attended the first live trade show since early March, the Swiss Fitness and Health Association's annual meeting. Felt a little bit funny because it was early March, the last time I had an event to go to. And we're going to be talking about what I've seen, what I've heard in over 100 webinars, things that are best practices. And before we start, I wanted to thank all of the people that have been involved in sharing this information. Also thanking Natalia Kabrasova from the FitTech Society for the invitation to speak. So, integrating COVID learnings into our business practices in order to survive. My background, I've been in the health and fitness business for 35 years, currently living in Switzerland, and I've seen the industry from a 360-degree perspective, working for trade associations, clubs, suppliers, education providers, and tech companies. And since 2016, I've been working from Switzerland and have clients in 8 countries, loving what I do, loving serving the industry. The digital transformation didn't start at COVID, but it has been going on for some time. Obviously, what has happened since COVID-19, the closing of clubs, the opening of clubs, has caused us to accelerate certain parts of the digital transformation. It is changing how we do the business, and if you see the quote beside on the left, it also talks about what we have to do to survive in the short term, as well as surviving in the long term. We'll be talking about some of the key findings from this phase, mega trends that are happening, best practices to survive, as well as in terms of the customer journey, a new way of sales and marketing given the conditions that have been created, but also unlearnings happening before that. So the gym of the future is going to be a connected network. And I'll give you some examples. I work out in a club here in Switzerland that uses an electronic circuit that has both strength and cardio and stretching integrated. There are solutions when you don't have electronic strength equipment or cardio that's connected, using Sony as an example from Sweden, that have ways using a smart pin, and there are several companies that do this, to measure non-electronic equipment. There are a couple of nice videos I'd love to share regarding what the Portuguese company Salinka does in terms of measuring who is in the club, where they're spending the time. That also helps us understand which equipment is being used, what changes need to be made to the layouts, as well as Basic Fit, a organization that has 900 clubs in 7 countries that are often unmanned or unstaffed, and they are in a position with 21 cameras per club, able to have in a central location the ability to see what's happening, to intervene as necessary in case something happens, be it someone needing medical help or a intervention caused by a break-in or improper behavior. Hybrid models, they are becoming part of the future. In March, there were about 25% of the clubs that had some form of streaming services offered to their clients. That very quickly jumped to 70%. And in May, June, when clubs started to reopen, some of those clubs had then reduced or eliminated these online offers, down to about 50% of clubs being offered. The connectedness of the network also involves the customer journey and how customers are satisfied, and satisfied customers recommend to others to join a club. So the Net Promoter Score is an example how to measure customer satisfaction, and as 60 to 70% of our customers come from recommendations, it's an important indicator of measuring what is necessary to change if necessary. A digital coaching pivot started to happen, especially with personal trainers, with nutrition counselors, but it didn't happen with health clubs to a great extent. And this will be very important when the second wave comes, if clubs have to close. For example, in Melbourne, there was a 6-month closure of clubs after they'd been open, which also happened in other markets, for example, in China. There are more and more apps that are being used, and a multi-channel or an omni-channel approach, which will become more standard, that people are expecting to be able to interact with you on their phone, on a tablet, using social media on different channels. And in terms of the customer experience, we have to understand that there's a process that people go through. John Nasta from the UK, using an Abraham Maslow model, has talked about moving people from unconscious and incompetent towards being consciously competent. For example, and this came up in a meeting I had with an education provider in the Netherlands in August, that if people aren't aware of what they need and they're not interested, they're in the unconscious, incompetent phase. You can be sending them great offers, but if they don't know that they need it and they're not interested, it's not going to affect them. But using the example of a statistic during the COVID phase, 70% of people that were tested positive with COVID-19 that needed hospital care, needed to be treated in the hospital, were obese. And those people, such as Boris Johnson, realized, geez, if I am overweight, if I am obese, I have a much higher chance of being very seriously affected by COVID than if that was not the case. And once they understand that, then they'll be more motivated to act. And then they become conscious, but they're still incompetent. And that's where they need to learn what they need to do and how to do it. And that's where health clubs or personal trainers are in a great position to do so. And once they get those new habits set up, they know how to use the equipment, they have an exercise program, a second program, they become consciously competent. And then at a certain point, when they know what to do and it's second nature, then they transform themselves to becoming unconsciously competent, and it just becomes part of their lives and their mindset. Communication throughout this journey is very important. So the customer communication is now receiving more and more importance on an individual basis, needing to be interactive with their clients or potential clients, and it's a long-term play. We need to be informative, first of all, to let people know that it's important for them, that they understand it, and just like with suppliers, it's a partnership-focused approach, and we need to be generating added value. Otherwise, people are just going to choose the cheapest option. So these different integrated touch points, for example, a wearable, where not just the end user, but clubs and their trainers can access this information and integrate and act upon it. So a club owner needs to be aware of the internal communication within their team as being a key factor, and it's a mutual learning experience. So in March, when COVID-19 began, a lot of people had to learn quickly what to do and doing things differently. So at first, maybe they weren't very good at streaming their own classes, but they got better. And the communication with our various partners was also important and is important in the future, cooperating, providing solutions, sharing knowledge. And as the trends moving forward are more on the customer focus, we saw when the clubs reopened, at first there was maybe 35% of the members that were confident enough in clubs that they would go and work out again. So the focus was on this is a safe environment, so the hygiene aspect. And we had clubs that were encouraging their staff, their members, to be posting, for example, videos showing people that it's safe and it's a good environment to work out, and that's the right place to be losing the 5 kilos on average that the average person gained in the COVID phase. Their refrigerator was closer to them than the club. We're seeing also an increased focus on the health aspects of someone's fitness program and the delivery. Another webinar that I attended and participated in August talked more about the body-mind connection, and this is becoming more and more important. Close to 40% of the people had some sort of mental issues during the COVID time, and they sometimes don't go away. So helping people with their mindset, addressing their concerns, their fears, and helping them along the way. If the mind is not in the right place, their body's not going to get to the club. And that also means different types of offers, more differentiated offers. When I was in Norway in August, for example, I visited a facility that was a family-oriented club. So they had programs for kids, for adults, for seniors, and they had programs that were targeting these different groups. In-club training, digital training, coachings are going to go hand in hand. It's really becoming more important to also follow and monitor what's happening when people are outside of the club, and being able to have integrated different solutions that will measure people in their wearables, when they have their smartphone, their tablets. That's going to be important. The government is focusing more on health. In the UK, they're saying you need to exercise also to reduce some of the pressure on the national health system. There have been United States and Canadian states and provinces that have encouraged and talked about the importance of exercise. And COVID and obesity, as I mentioned before, there is a strong correlation. So when governments see fitness as an essential service, there will be more confidence on the part of the end user. And the same thing is with doctors. If they prescribe exercise as medicine, then the confidence increases even more. The clubs also have to do it themselves. And for example, in Spain, the Catalonian province, the clubs got together. They fought for the right to stay open when the cases went up again, sort of a second wave. And another good practice is understanding that people might be timid about going to the club. They introduced virtual tours, so you could see online what it's like to come into the club. When the people did come into the club, they had smart cards for entry systems, and those cards not only provided the right to enter the club, they're a paid member, but also to change the way of either giving them a locker or they can choose their own locker. The boutiques that are on the leading edge, they're using technology, for example, online bookings, following people. You can order a drink or a smoothie or shoes or an extra towel via the app, a seamless experience that involves payment, for example. And that tech makes sense. It also reduces the need to have so much staff. When I was in Amsterdam in August, I visited a club, the Vondel gyms, for example. They manage their whole club from a tablet. Some of their staff just with their smartphone. And then they can see when someone is walking around the club, who's in the club, the picture of the person, if they have a birthday, and that information at their fingertips is very powerful to help people interact with their members. And there's a difference between how old you are and your biological age. When people have gained weight and they come back into the exercise environment using, for example, an in-body body composition analysis device, it helps you. You might be 42 years old, but your body is telling you it's actually 50. You need to do something here and there. And national campaigns, such as the German IFF, has also created awareness about how essential it is for people to exercise, and clubs being a good place to do it. And it doesn't have to be clubs, though. I'll give you an example from August when I was in Canada. My brother from Vancouver came to Toronto. We were celebrating the 94th birthday of my mom. And in the days that he was with us, he continued his exercise program. He had his personal trainer give him digital sessions. He had a yoga class, even did a language class digitally while he was en route. I heard another example. In Australia, there's a personal trainer who was working with seniors and with families. And if there was a senior that didn't have a tablet, they would provide it for them, help them set it up so they could also take part in the classes. And in fact, my 94-year-old mom is doing her exercise program again. She's engaging with us on Zoom. We set up Wi-Fi for her, provided a tablet, and she has seen her health improve in the last weeks, becoming a regular habit, also motivated from seeing my brother do it via Zoom. So the IFF also had a network of over 4,000 club operators that were sharing information. That then was also true in Italy and in other markets. So the information networks are important to be sharing and helping us to survive. An education provider example, the NASM from the United States, that offers online personal training and nutrition courses. They do about 60,000 per year, have seen that there has been an uptick in people using these type of courses online to gain new skills. If there are people who lost their jobs in the service and hospitality industry, those people have pivoted to become or to learn to become personal trainers and coaches. Now, along with these schools and universities, the new normal is learning via your laptop, doing online courses to skill up in order to learn new skills and new ways to feed your family and maybe to get more earnings through a upskilling of yourself. An example of that digital integration, Virtua Gym based in Amsterdam and Medellin, Colombia, where you've got wearables that talk to your smartphone, that also integrate with tablets, with computer, whatever device you use, it's all in one. And people are increasingly expecting the different providers to abandon the silo approach and to be integrating with each other. So these type of integrations are being demanded by clubs to suppliers, and the clubs are providing these services so that they will help people regardless of whether they come to the club or not. And that's important because if they don't, they're going to see the likes of Apple and Facebook and Google and Amazon eating away at their core competence. Announcements that were made this summer, also in October, announced that these companies are deepening their footprint in the fitness space. They're offering scheduling solutions. You can advertise on them. There are users that are using these companies to see how the clubs are rated before they even make a decision to go into the club and check it out or not. Location services, which are the clubs or the boutiques that are closest to me. And Amazon just announced they're again entering the wearable market, and there are more and more of these integrated big players that see health as part of their space that they wanted to be in. There were many of the webinars around the world that were showing people best practices. The FitTech Singapore events were a good example. When I think back to April, my first FitTech Singapore Summit, which was a webinar, they were showing, using Fitness First as an example, that are in 6 countries in Asia, how they were tracking the various cases, and they had town hall meetings. Face-to-face was not possible, so they pivoted to online using Zoom communication, happy hours online, staff that couldn't have the distancing in their club were doing it in a distance way, and they were being proactive to the members, explaining what's happening, showing empathy with the situation. I'm seeing a lot of social media posts. I saw examples where clubs were providing food or medicines to senior members, going out to help them. And whatever that communication was, they were trying to articulate it in a clear and succinct way. We miss you, we understand, we're here to help. And if there were certain decisions made, explaining those decisions, knowing that they cannot do everything for everybody, they're considering the full spectrum and using multiple channels to do so. And in terms of this customer journey, they were picking people up where they're at, understanding the different stages, meaning the fear, learning, growing, and developing, and hopefully helping them to get healthy or healthy again. There are a lot of more examples I'd be happy to share with you. Feel free to contact me, visit my website, subscribe to my blog. My email address is there. You can connect on LinkedIn or Zing or Facebook. I'm also on Skype. My Swiss telephone number is there. I'm also on WhatsApp. So, at the end, I wanted to share with you a thought that communication is the silent ambassador of your brand. Whether you're into the club business or investing in it, or on the tech side wanting to understand it for a product or a service you may be bringing to market or have on the market. The examples I used from Europe, from Asia, from North America, hopefully will help you get a perspective on where the current situation is with tech in gyms around the world. There are some surprises of who is further ahead, who's doing what on different continents. But the bottom line is, in most markets, the industry came together during COVID, shared learnings. There was a big switch from in-person exercise to streaming, and there was a lot of suppliers that assisted in that process. We maybe got by this first wave without too much damage. There were some club closures in England, Gold's Gym was taken over by the Reiner Schaller Group, other changes of ownership. But in the end, those that came out stronger. And we need to remember the next wave may come and be prepared to deliver it digitally using tools that we've begun to learn in the COVID phase and will need to accelerate in other areas like digital coaching. Thank you very much for listening and have a great day.